Good morning, respective invitees. We'll now commence the first technical session on Defense and Strategic Studies for the 15th International Research Conference under the theme Military Affairs. We have 5 eminent presenters here with us today to present their thoughts and ideas on our theme for this conference. Without a doubt, this will be an interesting and an intellectually challenging session.
I would like to call upon Brigadier Upali Rajapaksa, RSP, PSC, Dean, Faculty of Graduate Studies, to introduce the Chairperson, Major General Swarna Bothota, RWP, RSP, USP, PSC, for the first technical session on Defense and Strategic Studies. Sir, over to you.
Vice Chancellor, General Sir John Patalati Press University, Major Melinda Pires, distinguished invitees, students of General Sir John Patalati Press University, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Vice Chancellor, I welcome you all to the Defense and Strategic Studies Technical Session 1 of the KU International Research Conference 2022, in which the presenters will deliver their papers on the sub-theme, Military Affairs. It is my pleasure to introduce the chairperson of the session today, Major General DBSN Bothota, RWP, RSP, USP, PSC, Military Secretary of the Sri Lanka Army, and the Colonel Commandant of the Sri Lanka Armed Corps, to the audience. Major General Swarna Bothota is presently serving as the Military Secretary of the Sri Lanka Army and the Colonel Commandant of the Sri Lanka Armed Corps. He was born on 5th June 1968 and was educated at Kottawa Dharmapala and Maliyadeva College, Kurunagal. He enlisted in the Sri Lanka Army on 22nd February 1988, and upon completion of his basic military training at the Sri Lanka Military Academy, Wijetunge, he was commissioned on 16th December 1989. Having graduated from the Army Command and Staff College in Sri Lanka in the year 2002, on his merit, he was selected to follow his second Command and Staff course at the Defence Services Command and Staff College in Bangladesh in the year 2004. To his command, he has commanded armoured troops and squadron and held the appointment of second in command of an armoured regiment. He was chosen to command the first Triforces mechanized company deployed in Haiti for peacekeeping duty from year 2005 to year 2006. Major General Swarna Bothota commanded the 6th Regiment Sri Lanka Armed Corps and finally commanded the prestigious 1st Reconnaissance Regiment Sri Lanka Armed Corps in the year 2007. He had commanded 2 infantry brigades and an infantry division. Major General Bothota had held numerous staff appointments to include ADCOM, Adjutant of 5th Regiment Armored Corps, GSO1 plans, Colonel Training, Colonel Commander Secretariat, Assistant Military Secretary and Adjutant General at Sri Lanka Army Headquarters. As an instructor, he had served as an officer instructor and a senior instructor at Sri Lanka Military Academy, directing staff at Defence Services Command and Staff College, and was chosen as the Commandant of Army War College, prior to which he served as a Defence Advisor at the Sri Lanka High Commission in London. In addition to his military qualification, Major General Bothota has earned a Master's degree in Development Studies and a Master's degree in International Relations from the University of Colombo. He has earned a Diploma in Project Management from London Business School in Colombo and Way and Lay College of the United Kingdom, Diploma in Conflict Resolution and Skills Development from the University of East Costa Rica and Bandaranaike Center for International Studies, Colombo, and a Diploma in Human Rights from the Institute of Human Rights, Colombo, Sri Lanka. While thanking him for being here with us today, accepting our invitation, I now cordially invite Major General Swarna Bothota on the stage and chair the Defence and Strategic Studies Technical Session 1. Meantime, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call upon our eminent guest speakers in the session, some physically and some online. Squadron Leader HWN Wanasinghe is joining online. Squadron Leader MADCK Wijetunge is joining us physically. Dr. KSC de Silva is joining us physically. Lieutenant Commander AR Amarasekara is joining us physically. Major DCL Hapuarachchi is joining online. Major General Swarnamothri will also introduce the presenters of the session to the audience. Over to you, Swarna.
Vice Chancellor, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the Technical Session 1, Military Affairs of the Annual International Research Conference of the Kottala Defense University. When I saw this topic and this worthy endeavor, I could recollect what John Meacham said. I quote, "Without education, we are weaker economically. Without economic power, we are weaker in terms of national security. No great military power has ever remained so without great economic power." I unquote. Ladies and gentlemen, warfare and technology are interwoven. Evolution of warfare and its strategies have advanced with the development of technology and innovations in military. This occasion, we all can link the dots between education, economy, national security, and military. In today's extremely interdependent and integrated world, we see that the economy, essentially which should be sustainable, has inevitably linked with the national security. Particularly when we focus on comprehensive security, which is inherently complex, therefore, we have to find solutions which are also complex. There is no debate about the vitality of science, technology, and innovation as primary means to simplify the complexities of the contemporary security environment. As a leading stakeholder of the national security consideration, military world over has enthusiastically embraced the convenience provided by science, technology, and innovation to negate the uncertainties we face when presenting solutions for our national security issues. Sri Lanka military is no exception on this conundrum, as we have faced for long. Even at now, we are experiencing the implications of fog and friction of conflict. What we can do about it? What are the challenges that are on our way when we are trying to use science, technology, and innovation while performing our roles and tasks to support the national security, economic revival, and sustainability? And I think this is the focus of this forum today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 5 presenters and they are eagerly waiting to present their findings. First topic of the session is Blue Helmet Operation for Sustaining Air Power Amidst Financial Crisis, with special reference to niche air force. It is my duty as the chair to introduce our speakers. So let me introduce Squadron Leader H.W. Wanasinghe, who is a fighter pilot and qualified flying instructor, presently following Defence Service Command and Staff College course at Bothota, and reading for Masters in Defence and Strategic Studies at the Kottala Defense University. He earned his bachelor's degree in Management and Technical Sciences from the Kottala Defense University in 2008 and Masters in Human Resource Management, University of Colombo in the year 2020. His research areas include air power, air strategy, air diplomacy and air defense. And I think he's joining us online today to present his paper. Then we have Squadron Leader MDCK Wijetunge, who is a flight controller and presently serving as a directing staff at the Junior Command and Staff College, Air Force Academy, China. He has followed Defense Service Command and Staff College course at DSCSC Safugaskan in the year 2020 with a master's degree in Defense and Strategic Studies from the Bothota Defense University. He will speak on the prevalence of niche Air Force amidst economic turmoil, opportunities and way forward after the first session. Over to you. The first person is joining us online, no? Yes.
Audible, sir? Good morning, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, please.
Yes. So thank you very much for your kind introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. Severity of COVID-19 pandemic is now fading away gradually, yet leaving a strong trail of socio-economic turmoil across the globe. Day-to-day fleet maintenance, flying operations, and flying training are the most curtailed functions of Sri Lanka Air Force under present circumstances. Employment of air power in United Nations peacekeeping operations could be a viable solution for utilizing idling air assets for a better purpose. My contents is as follows. Moving on to the methodology, the exploratory qualitative study, I have followed this particular methodology to realize my conceptual framework has been formulated from the theoretical framework. United Nations peacekeeping operations are not a novel notion. There is an increased demand for large number of troops for providing humanitarian aid and support implementing general governance. Employment of troops could be a source of income for troop contributing countries by employing assets of their air force. Sri Lanka Air Force has aircraft and aircrew which are underutilized after 2009 upon completion of the humanitarian operations. Due to their higher specialization, their employment cannot be optimized elsewhere. These are the documents which form up the mandate between troop contributing countries and United Nations regarding the employment of any contingent as well as air contingent and reimbursement as a return. Findings and discussion is conducted under 4 main subtopics as follows. Actually, there are 4 main criteria considered for reimbursement as follows. It is for self-sustainment, major equipment employed, payment for the troops as well as payment for the operational cost. Due to the economic constraints and fuel shortages, Sri Lanka Air Force has been compelled to minimize its flying operations. During flying in UN contingent, aircrew are exposed to much complicated and demanding situations than usual flying in peacetime. Hence, it provides great opportunity to groom aircrew for demanding operational scenarios. The motivation of the UN-employed aircrew is comparatively higher due to additional personal income, recognition upon completion of the mission, as well as an added qualification for them after retirement. Therefore, by employing a greater number of troops for UN deployments, SLA could expect higher motivation and satisfaction among its troops in future endeavors. Fleet maintenance has become a very serious issue for Sri Lanka Air Force due to the scarcity of foreign currency. Employment of the potential air assets for United Nations peacekeeping operations will keep the aircraft in running condition. Unlike other ventures, the return of investment is guaranteed. UN air contingent operations entail numerous challenges as follows. Let me deliberate one by one. UN demands higher standard of major equipment and self-sustainment measures from any of the contingent. Once the resources are being allocated to the UN, they cannot be shared for any other purposes. UN demands certain level of experience and competency with some specialized skills from the aircrew of the contingent, striking a balance between UN requirements as well as HOTS requirements without compromising the national demands of the state is a challenging start. Logistic chain management is a very complex process in UN air contingent. Inefficient management could incur high operational cost due to inefficiency. Niche air forces such as Sri Lanka Air Force does not have the luxury of maintaining own line of communications through land, sea or air. Hence, catering requirements of the UN contingent at faraway distances is a complex and serious undertaking. Efficiency and effectiveness of this process actually decides the net outcome of the employment in longer run. Even though this is a profitable venture with tangible and intangible return, the prominence given by the government is comparatively low. Poor knowledge on UN missions, load of homework necessitated for greater financial requirement are the key reasons behind this backwardness. Under present dollar shortage, it would be a great hurdle for employing a new contingent at UN service. It will demand extra effort from the SLA hierarchy to convince the government authorities regarding the matter. As the situation deteriorates, UN missions are expanding and vice versa when the situations become better. During downsizing, the lowest performing contingents are compelled to repatriate first. Discipline of the troops, success of the task undertaken, maintaining the standards are among the most important determinants of performance of a contingent. Annual performance report for individual contingent by respective mission headquarters is usually being prepared. Hence, more attention is to be paid to secure high level of performance rather than merely surviving within the mission. Upon completion of the study, researchers came up with viable recommendations to make the UN deployments a more profitable undertaking for Sri Lanka as follows. Efficiency and effectiveness of logistic chain management is the key determinant in operational cost of any air contingent. Proper planning and maintenance of accurately forecasted port supply could be the main contributor for optimizing the supply chain management system. Utilization of SLA fixed-wing aircraft or else Sri Lankan Airlines would be another option which is being successfully adopted by regional counterparts. Further implementing of data management system also very useful in more accurate forecasting as well as trend monitoring to avoid the unnecessary costs involved in delayed paid planning. Getting candidacy for UN missions is a lengthy and time-consuming process. Advancing through level by level to get qualified for the UN assignments need patronage of higher authorities. These preparations require careful study on previous UN mandates, manuals and existing SOPs. If a mechanism for maintenance of national level UN package common to all forces for major equipment as well as self-sustenance could be formulated, it could be more beneficial in long run. Budgetary allocations for the function and development of any air force predominantly depends upon the decisions of the government authorities. It is the responsibility of the Air Force to convince the authorities for adequate budgetary by proposing appropriate adjustments for existing requirements to minimize the burden on the treasury. The true potential and manifested profit of the deployment of the assets is to be highlighted along with the effect of prevalence of the organization effectively amid present socio-economic crisis. As a concluding note, I would like to highlight that timely transformation is required in survival, sustenance, as well as growth for any kind of effort. And it is a challenging task. At this critical juncture, the employment of professional assets in UN peacekeeping operation would be one of the best options, not aiding preserving present air power capabilities to a similar degree. Therefore, it is high time for appropriate transformation of their strategy to survive amidst this present socio-economic crisis and support nation-building efforts of the state while easing out the financial constraints upon the country. So our reference list is as follows. And thank you very much for your patient listening.
Thank you, Nirosh, for your presentation. Please stay with us. We will join again at the question and answer session.
Thank you.
Kasumi can start.
Thank you, sir. Air power is the ability of a state to assert its will through the medium of air by employing air resources. Air Force is a military arm that primarily responsible to employ air power in peace, crisis, or wartime. These air forces have been categorized into 3 tiers, such as large, small, and niche air forces. Large and small air forces have capabilities and capacities to operate a wide array of air power operations. The two mainly contrast by their industrial capabilities. However, niche air forces have very limited air power capabilities. They do not have a depth in capabilities and capacities, as well as no industrial capabilities, which make them to rely on external assistance for their sustainment. Having heard that, the conference chair, distinguished invitees, presenters, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am Squadron Kasumi Wijetunge from Sri Lanka Air Force, and it's truly honored and privileged me to present for the 2nd consecutive year in this prestigious forum. During next 10 minutes or so, I am endeavoring to present and discuss you on prevalence of niche air forces amidst economic turmoil. Ladies and gentlemen, let me unfold my proceedings as per the content flash on the screen. My aim is to Shrinking economies of small developing states have made them unable to sustain their air forces. Thus, relevance and coexistence of niche air forces have been critically deprived. Therefore, it is necessary to give insights on multinational cooperation and to bolster the conceptual and moral components in order to build a competent workforce. Therefore, it is imperative to fill this gap through human-centric and air diplomacy approaches. Study findings will be unfolded according to these 4 themes. I shall brief you one by one. Today we are seeing economies of small states have been plunging due to COVID-19 pandemic, excessive debts and non-resilience of their economies. In turn, making 1.7 billion from Latin, African and Asia Pacific regions are vulnerable. That made inevitably compelling these governments to curtail their defense budgets. This chart illustrating respective countries' defense budgets as a percentage of their GDPs. Sri Lanka has been spending nearly 2% out of their GDP on military expenditure. While with such economic turmoil, it is deemed necessary to reform, restructure, reshape niche air forces as suited to the fiscal allocations. Imbalanced fiscal allocations within niche air force being made an asymmetric force. Therefore, national effects-based approach is pivotal for capacity and capability building, while having an intellectual, high-skill and multitask-oriented workforce. Hence, niche air forces are required to maintain a workforce with a composition at least 100 men or below for a single aircraft. Ladies and gentlemen, this graph depicts personal strength versus number of aircraft in the regional air forces. You would see small air forces like India, Pakistan have able to maintain this ratio in 2 digits, where in our context it has been inclined up to 3 digits. Air power has 4 fundamental roles: control of air, intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, attack and air mobility. Niche air forces necessary to prioritize these roles as relevant to the contemporary environment. Economic insecurity put combat readiness of an air force towards a strategic oblivion state. To avoid such, fiscal allocations, workforce structuring to be done according to selected precedents of air power roles in a niche air force in order to maintain minimum threshold levels of required capabilities. Control of air is to safeguard national airspace irrespective of war or peace. Therefore, it is necessary to boost our capabilities on platforms such as interceptors, radars, command and control nodes, and land-based air defense systems. In view of enhancing the situational awareness and obtain timely accurate intelligence, air forces must develop their ISR capabilities. Gathered data must be conformed to the PED model, process, exploit and dissemination, that would help to identify new threats and new trends. Enhancing operational capabilities in maritime security domain would strengthen maritime security. Thus, joint air maritime command structure is essential in this regard. Airlift platforms with strategic reach are pivotal in order to implement air diplomacy and air transport engagements. Therefore, versatile transport platforms are required to engage in humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, air diplomacy and other air transport operations. Ladies and gentlemen, capacity building of attack role always lies with the existing and forecasted threat envelopes. That becomes not an urgent requisite during an economic turmoil and when you do not have a conflict in your country. However, it cannot be ignored totally where niche air forces necessary to maintain the combat readiness, at least with a minimum necessary force. Ladies and gentlemen, therefore, niche air forces are required to prioritize air power roles according to the precedents given on the screen. However, this may vary according to the context. Air diplomacy refers how an air force works in quest of the foreign policy aspirations of a country. Air diplomacy would perfectly set the platform to boost the potential of a niche air force. Multinational cooperation permits air forces to access capabilities that cannot be afforded by themselves. Such approach will increase interdependency, but the regional stability as well. However, political consensus is pivotal, prior to implement such mechanism in order to avoid misperception of the public. A workforce with professional mastery is always a force multiplier for any force. Therefore, niche air forces should focus on development of professional military education, training, and to inculcate a self-learning culture to apply the gained knowledge. Thereby, niche air forces could develop a numerically smaller force, but a force with a better understanding and know-how to operate, while retaining a skillful and affordable workforce. Ladies and gentlemen, based on the proceedings which I have elaborated, study recommended to reform, restructure the force assets empowered with the fiscal provisions being provisioned, and division of annual fiscal allocations must be done according to the precedents of air power roles which I have explained. Right size the cadre while retain aircraft to human ratio below 2 digits is essential. And meantime to modernize the interceptor, ISR and airlift platforms through air diplomacy framework while adopting smart range refleeting method. Increasing UN peacekeeping engagements and staff appointments would help to boost country's economy. Establishing an air power studies development center will be enabled to disseminate our professional mastery for the other air forces as well. Strengthening professional education and training would permit to build a professional air force. Ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, let me make a concluding note. Financial constraint is a common dilemma for any air force irrespective of their size. Niche air forces necessary to prioritize their roles, tasks, in par with the air power roles. Therefore, multinational cooperation and human-centric approach would craft a competent workforce that is absolutely necessary in the contemporary environment. Before wind up, let me quote the founder of the Pakistan, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. I quote, "A country without a strong air force is at the mercy of any aggressor." Unquote. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the references which we have used for our study. Thank you for your patience listening.
Thank you, Kasun, for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, let us move to the next session. Our next speaker is Dr. De Silva, who is not a stranger in the fields of strategic studies in Sri Lanka. De Silva obtained his PhD from the Department of International Relations, University of Colombo, for his research study titled Nuclear Complexities in South Asia, Sri Lanka's Security Concerns under the Nuclear Shed. He received his Bachelor of Art degree from the University of California and Masters of International Relations from the University of Colombo. He is also a graduate of the United States University of Defense and Near East South Asia Center for Strategic Studies, which is commonly known as NISA. Dr. De Silva was a former working group member of the Weapons of Mass Destruction and Border Security Group of Regional Network for Strategic Studies Center, RNSSC, Washington, D.C. He completed his Advanced Security Cooperation course at the Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies in Hawaii in year 2016. Dr. De Silva is a visiting research person at the Defense Service Command and Staff College, Sapukaskanda, Army War College, Buttala, Sri Lanka Vidyathalava, and Sri Lanka Air Force Academy, China. One of his publication co-titled with Professor W.Y. Sirivadra titled Warfare in Sri Lanka, Military History of the Island from the Earliest Time up to Independence was nominated for the State Literacy Award in the category of Academic and Research in 2017. He will speak on the emergence of stability-instability paradox in South Asian nuclear environment. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you, Chair, distinguished guests and my dear students and the officers the senior and junior officers. The next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to present about an anomaly that is evolving in the South Asian nuclear context. Before that, let me first unpack my title. You know, the word paradox is in my title, so I have responsibility to unpack that. A paradox is a seemingly absurd or self-contradictory statement or proposition that, when investigated or explained, may prove to be well-founded or true. So here, the paradox is that in the theory of deterrence, Walls, especially Kenneth Walls, say, when you have absolute weapons in your possession, you shouldn't go for traditional military provocations. That may hamper your balance of power and strategic stability. So I suggest, or I propose, in the case of South Asia, that doesn't happen as Walls predicts. The more weapons you have, the more provocations the South Asia goes into. And let me clear with my objective, because this is a very sensitive area of study. My objective is not to criticize or undermine any of the national interests of our friendly neighboring countries. My objective solely is to educate you about or to make you aware about what is happening around us, because we have a right to be aware. So, stability-instability paradox. But I mean, stability-instability, when you use it together, it's a paradox. It's a peculiar situation pertaining to South Asian strategic environment. It is generally believed that the nuclear state should not even try to initiate a conventional type fighting when you possess a nuclear weapon. But this is not, I mean, the situation is not only about provocations. It is very much about that we are in dangerous situation where we don't understand, the general public don't understand. We are very much in a stage of very easily fall into a nuclear war than the other parts of having strategic stability of other parts in international relations. So this study was basically done by Paul Kapoor under his thesis title, Dangerous Deterrent, Nuclear Weapons and Proliferation and Conflict in South Asia. So the background is actually, you can see the India's and Pakistani ballistic missile capabilities. I take ballistic missile capabilities because they are the strategic weapons. The strategic weapons are not meant to be used in warfare, because they are there as political weapons most of the time. And also, all these weapons that they possess are not governed by international mechanisms, international treaty mechanisms. They are basically governed by their MOUs. So this is the type of MOUs that India and Pakistan is having. And exchange of nuclear list facilities contains about 26%, and all the others are very fragile, I should say, but for the last 24 years, they managed to have war, but not without using absolute weapon. And also I should tell you that they, especially from the side of Indians, having the number of nuclear weapons, have three different ideologies, the theoretical ideologies. So there are minimalists, there are moderates, and there are maximalists. But generally, the minimalists say that you should not go beyond 2 digits with the weapon possession, and moderates say that you should go from 100 to 200 nuclear weapons, and maximalists over 300 nuclear weapons. So the moderates are more powerful here, and they are actually going into the sea capability, because if you listen to yesterday, Admiral Chauhan said that next 2 centuries will be sea-based, strategic time that we have to go into the sea. So they are building up sea-based second strike capabilities. And the problem is, it is very pertinent to examine why this peculiar correlation exists in the region, because we, in India and Pakistan, they started their nuclear weapons programs to stabilize the region. Pakistan went for a nuclear weapons program, as my colleague explained, without Air Force and nuclear weapons, they can't deter India. So the deterrence should work, the rational deterrence should work in this matrix. But you know, the data says it doesn't work as we expected. According to data, nuclear weapons have not only failed to deter effectively in terms of nuclear conflict in South Asia, but also made deterrence more dangerous and nuclear conflicts more likely to erupt. So that's my proposition. My objective is to see how deterrence works on balance of power in Indo-Pakistan relations, right? And then according to Paul Kapoor's data, the conventional military ratio of two states from 1971 to 2002, I take 1971 because that is the year that Pakistan lost in the war to India. So that's the reason that they wanted to come into the nuclear arena. So this table shows the ratio. The India is in a straight line, and Pakistan in a straight line, and India is about 1 to the conventional military power parity. So then they need to bridge that. Pakistan also need to bridge that to have India deterred. So the argument is the proliferation of nuclear weapons seriously enhanced the danger of nuclear. So this bridging has endangered the situation more. Military instability increased as proliferation process progressed, right? So Paul Kapoor's data and research reveals that the objective of the acquiring nuclear weapons to stabilize the relations between states by mitigating the conflicts that would trigger due to conventional military asymmetry is no longer applicable to South Asia. So if you want to acquire weapons of mass destruction to stabilize, it is not taking place anymore. So in case, Kapoor categorizes militarized disputes into 4 segments: no military action at all, display of force, use of force, and war. Under that, he comes up with this data. So according to this data, you can see the non-nuclear period. During the non-nuclear period, the military provocations are less than the nuclear period. So that means the more nuclear weapons you acquire, the more destabilized that you become. So my findings is the process that unfolded here was somewhat contradictory to what Kenneth Walls proposed as a theory of deterrence. According to Walls, nuclear states should not promote military escalations since it is far more dangerous than non-nuclear states stepping into such an environment. When nuclear states go into provocations, there is the danger of crossing the threshold. He further emphasizes states are not likely to run major risks for minor gains within international relations. So that is the basis of his argument. So this argument is questioned by emergence of the stability-instability paradox, which is prevailing now. And this is being studied by Paul Kapoor and Peter Lavoie. In South Asia, since this view suggests that stability at the nuclear level encouraged the offensive military operations at the lower level. We could very well seen this in Pulwama Balakot attack. They were actually talking, even the military commanders were talking as if nuclear was the first line of defense. So finally, this is the situation, the nuclear. This is a very complex situation. The complex situations are described by causal loop analysis. This is a causal loop analysis. You can see in the middle the nuclear weapons proliferation is taking place and the strategic instability results in South Asia as a result of proliferation. And you can see R1, R2, R3, R4, R5, R and V1 and R6 loops, separate loops. Only the V1 loop is a balancing loop. You can see the plus and minus marks the CBMs and the nuclear proliferation. When CBMs go up, proliferation goes down. But all the other loops are reinforcing loops. When one side goes up, the other side goes up as well. For an example, nuclear command philosophies. You know, nuclear command philosophies has serious problem of getting more military persons into the command philosophies because it's taking over from civilian sector to the military sector. That will also lead into proliferation, and that will also lead into strategic instability. Non-state actors and security of non-nuclear weapon states like us. So this is the complex situation that we need to understand. And even the civil nuclear environment is reinforcing the weapon environment, because whatever whatever that is being discovered in the civil nuclear environment is supporting the weapon environment. So with that, my dear friends, I want to establish that the situation in South Asia, due to the proliferation of nuclear weapons, is very instabilized, and the more weapons that you have, the more instability will be and more insecurity will prevail. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, now I have the privilege of introducing our next speaker, Lieutenant Colonel L.R. Amarasekara, another tanker like me. Lieutenant Colonel Amarasekara joined the Sri Lanka Army in October 1995 and commissioned into the Sri Lanka Armored Corps. He served in command, staff and academic positions and has followed a number of local and foreign courses. He obtained his basic degree from the Bothota Defence University and obtained Master's degree in Human Resource Management from the University of Colombo. Lieutenant Colonel Amarasekara will present his paper on the topic of changing threat dimensions and disparity in Sri Lankan warfare, analyzing the human resource of the Sri Lanka Army. Over to you, Lasit.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind introduction, and distinguished guests and senior officers of the forces and the cadets. Good morning. Warfare is a competition between enemies and contents of the action and the counteraction, and control or change based on the agencies of the competitors. This competition unfolds in the domain accessible to each competitor's land, sea, air, space and cyberspace. Evolution of warfare and its strategies have advanced with the development of technology and innovation in the military. Due to globalization, it cannot be neglected the threat of the enemy operating in some other parts of the world, and even though the state is an island. As a result, warfare has accelerated and has diverged into the different domains. However, which military innovations occurred parallel to the changing nature of the threat dimensions in the strategic environment. Therefore, the man behind the machine should be upgraded as the contemporary threat and the technology. For an example, at the present most of the world's warforce fought in cyberspace and use of radio electronic warfare systems. Present warfare demands advanced technical knowledge and the accurate implementation of the ground. It is obvious that development of the military hardware and the handling of sophisticated weapons cannot be done without the human resources. The mass destruction weapons are handled by the highly qualified, limited human resources. It uses almost all the cyberspace, including the social media. In here, the social media also some sort of help for the warfare. It can be taken from the social media also. We can take some information about the system. The man behind the machine should be upgraded as to the contemporary threats and the technology. It's not possible to face the novel security intelligence solely depending on the human resources as well as the technically sound equipment. Therefore, I would like to emphasize here that it is not possible to face novel security challenges with absolute competencies of the human resources, since capabilities of the machine and equipment totally depend on the human resources behind it. The objectives of my research will be changing dimension of the security atmosphere which related to Sri Lanka and the world. Examine the existing capabilities of the human resources of Sri Lankan army in dealing with the novel security challenges. Determine the competencies required for the officers and soldiers and required which need to be fulfilled. For this research, I use this methodology. The research will be based on the primary and secondary data, and secondary data will be accumulated from the books, reports, journals, articles, statements, video, etc. And case studies are also being used to analyze the equipment, and emphasize the concept and the circumstances. And other than that, I may use for the interviews to get the experience of the officers and soldiers in the battlefield. The security atmosphere in Sri Lanka, in looking at the trends, shaping of the 21st century trends assessment, it need to be addressed 6 issues which are influencing the evolution of the threats to Sri Lankan security interest, and which makes strategic planning for the forces will be complex. These are development changing in natural nature of the future war. The most of the challenging dimensions of the post-World War is the requirement to identify the evaluate and enduring and new security dangers. The challenges are many: terrorism, threat of weapons of mass destruction, drugs trafficking, environmental degradation, ethnic and religious racial conflicts, dealing with the sea changes occurring in Asia and somewhere else throughout the globe. The changes are now at all too familiar to military planners. While considering the traditional security problem to include the rise of regional hegemonies and the threat of the local interest conflicts remains a central concern, as array of the less well-defined dangers have assumed prominent place in the military planning consideration. It is obvious that need to make a policy for making a post-Cold War dangers that is based on the 3 elements: the prevention of emerging threats, the deterrence of those threats to develop, and the defeat of the threats to nation if prevention and deterrence fail. In looking at the trends shaping the 21st century threat assessment, it needs to be addressed. It is defined 6 issues which are influencing evolutions of the threat to Sri Lankan security interest, and which makes strategic planning more complex. and changing the nature of the war. The central task of the military planners at the dawn of the 21st century is assess the implement of existing political, economical, military and technological trends on the nature of the armed conflict. Shift in regional alignment. The shift is alliance, coalitions and ideological orientation almost immediately cloud the traditional threat pictures and made increasingly obscure the former distinguish of who we fight along and what danger we could plan to fight again. It is very difficult to identify the real friend or enemy as a state. To development of security threats which are not limited by the national boundaries and affiliation. Weapon and military technology proliferation, spreading of weapon and military technology. Its present scenario is we can see these potential adversaries are pursuing the development or acquisition of NBC, nuclear, biological, chemical weapons. Most of the countries at the present acquire or try to obtain nuclear, biological weapon systems. The rapid pace of change in itself. Finally, the traditional nature of the many key threats and their adversaries have created an environment where change, uncertainty and the surprise are themselves substantially factors in the development of national and regional military strategies. Human resource and novel security challenges. The Sri Lankan Army aligned and developed its fighting power based on the core components. Command structure of the Sri Lankan Army is based on the conventional settings of operation existing from the lowest to highest level with the aligned of force structure composing small to higher with the mix of the men and material and equipment allocated to execute the given task. It is need to pay more attention on fight in cyberspace, readiness for NPC attack, intelligence and counter-intelligence, counter-propaganda. We need to think about this. Do we have people who can handle those things? We do have people who is having a competencies for this. HR functions. We will get into HR functions. How this HR function will help to develop the system of the army. It is required to have a people with competencies who can make use of future warfare. HR has many important functions in any organization. It need to revise almost all the HR functions in the army. Achieving goal are depend on the strategy and the capabilities of the respective organization. The competencies of the human resources should be able to achieve the desired goal to the strategies it used to adapt. It is believed that as per the doctrines followed by Sri Lankan military practices, mission command is the best. In that, it is obvious to understand that human resources should be capable enough to handle the situations and produce the desired goal of the organization. Any organization, these are the HR functions, basic HR functions we have followed or practiced. So in the army also, we knowing or unknowingly we have to practice those HR functions. Still, we practicing these functions. I am not explaining anything about it because of the time constraint. So let's recommendation. In my research, I recommend to implement some areas which is required to develop the army. These are the recommendations. Identify the future threats. We have to identify the future threats to Sri Lanka, and according to that, we have to use these HR functions to get the required people to the army. Acquire talent. Identify and recruit the diverse military and civil talent needed to organization, train, equip and force ready for prompt and sustained ground combat, creating a robust pipeline of new talent into the army should be the main effort. The army must be placed great emphasis on the acquiring the right people through better screening and assessment, allowing us save and reinvest valuable resources by reducing the attrition. Market. Employ innovation techniques to increase the awareness of the span of the army development opportunities and to shape the preference, targeting effort again specific talent pool in the labor market where critical talent is most likely to be available. Recruit. Screen and select potential soldiers and the civilians who actively respond to the army marketing effort and seek serve in the army on board. Study new soldiers to maximize their productivity and establish the terms of their initial service with the army. Development talent. In collaboration with each army professional, identify employment, education and training opportunities which will extend their talent, close talent gaps and maximize their contribution to the army. The army must ensure it continually develop its soldiers not only to place them in position of greater responsibilities, but also to ensure significance with emerging technology. Furthermore, the army must ensure it has system to place to understand and appreciate the talent of soldiers. Talent of professional should be developed as per the current requirement of the battlefield. And education, training and credential. These are the main points under the talents. And employ talented people. Maximum the engage of contribution to readiness of the soldiers by aligning their unique talent against organization talent demand to benefit to the army, the organization and the individuals. It should be suited for the present battlefield. Then finally, this is not finally, but it is the most important thing, retain the people in the army. Most of the people used to leave the army because they have more opportunities in the outside, and we need to keep them to betterment of the forces. For that, it is required to motivate the people, make them satisfied, dignity, the people will come for the dignity to the army, maintain the dignity of the army, and social well-being and salary and welfare. So these are the main points where we should consider to retain these people. Finally, conclusion. The army must remain ready as a world premier combat force. The readiness is strengthened by the people who comprise the total army. After all, equipment does not learn, understand, innovate, build cohesive teams or excessive judgment, but people do. Human capabilities like resiliency and critical thinking and comfort with the ambiguities, ability to accept prudent risks and adjust rapidly all define our professions. It is required to build a 21st century talent management-based personal system by creating the policies, programs and procedures that recognize and capitalize the unique knowledge, skills and the behavior processed by every member of the army. And then employ each member of the maximum effect. The mission should be to build cohesive team for the army by maximizing the talent of our people. With the right people in the right place at the right time, our army will successfully deploy and fight and win in the multiple domain operation and excel in support of the joint forces. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are on the last session. Our last presenters of this session are Major D.C.N. Hapuarachchi and Ms. Sindhuja Umandi Vikramasinghe Jayaratne. Major Vikramasinghe is a gunner from the 14th Rocket Regiment of the Sri Lanka Artillery. He followed electrical and electronic engineering degree at Bothota Defence University in 1928. He was a member of the project Smart and Automated Fire and Power Monitoring System, which was presented at IEEE 8th International Conference on Industrial and Information Systems in 2013. Ms. Sindhuja Jayaratne is currently working as a lecturer in Sir John Bothota Defence University, teaching political science, terrorism, violent extremism and intelligence to undergraduate and postgraduate students. She is a PhD candidate at KDU focusing on countering violent extremism in the wake of nationalism. She obtained her MSc Strategic Studies degree from the Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, and BSc International Relations from the University of London, London School of Economic and Political Science. She also completed a certificate in terrorism studies from S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies, RSIS. Prior to her current position, she is also a student research assistant at RSIS. Ms. Jayaratne possesses 6 years of working experience in the humanitarian sector, contributing to the reconciliation and rehabilitation process during the past conflict era of Sri Lanka. Over to you. They will present online.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My presentation is based on the utility of drones by the criminals and how to counter the threat. Okay, Frank W. Avender has once stated, technology breeds crime and we are continuously trying to develop technology to stay one step ahead of the person trying to use it negatively. As a result, the use of technology is inevitable not only by terrorists but also among criminals. Transnational criminal networks and organizations are no longer limited to utilizing of small arms and achieving their goals. They are also in the middle of apprehending new means of surveillance, monitoring and dispatch by utilizing drones, especially in the areas of drug smuggling and human trafficking. However, this presentation is mainly based on information related to drug smuggling and trafficking, and within such techno-transformation of criminals, this research emphasized the utilization of drones in criminal activities and the importance of countermeasures. Also, this research is based on
some interesting experiences, some case studies, then measures being implemented to counter the use of drones in transnational crimes, and very importantly, they discuss about the applicability for Sri Lanka, and they comprehend the gap between the existing countermeasures and the threat of drones being utilized in criminal activities of Sri Lanka. Right, with that, I finish, come to the end of my little summary, and I invite all ladies and gentlemen here for the question and answer session. And I also request you to shoot your question direct to the panel or to a particular panelist, and keep your question short and to refrain from or avoiding making comments and observations unless it is really necessary. Thank you very much, and I invite all the panelists for the question and answer session. Thank you. The floor is open. There's a question in the chat box to Squadron Leader Niroshan. Can you please elaborate the areas that Sri Lanka military is most suits for strengthening UN peacekeeping missions? Yes, please.
Yes, sir. As I have gone through the reimbursement values, that means how the UN pays for your service rendered to the UN peacekeeping missions. Air contingent is the most profitable undertaking because they pay. Now it is depending on the type of aircraft you are employing and type of the mission you conduct within that particular mission. So if you take, for an example, one Mi-17 helicopter flying for 1 hour is paid approximately 4,200, 4,300 US dollars per hour. So that's a very huge amount of money, and it is more than enough to cater the operational expenses you incur during UN peacekeeping operations as an air contingent, as well as you generate profit. So that's why the neighboring countries such as Bangladesh, India, Pakistan and Nepal, they are very much committed to these UN peacekeeping operations, and they have generated a lot of money by employing air assets. Yes, it takes at least 10 years to get the full benefit. It's a long process because the capital cost of aircraft is a little bit high. But in our case, we already have those helicopters, so we have done already the capital investment. So what we can do is, we have to spend little more to make them serviceable and bring up the standard expected by the UN and invest them. So it's a win-win situation for the Air Force.
So let me add one point, apart from the aviation contingent, that employment of UN staff officer appointments is another very profitable venture where one staff officer would nearly earn $5,000 per month. And if you calculate per 1 year, if we employ 100 staff officers, we would be able to earn nearly 5 million in a single year.
Okay, I read something here. The number of staff officer vacancies that we get is depending on the number of troops we have contributed. That is also a fact. Any question from the audience? Dr. Silva, you have a question here. The question is, please explain the role of non-nuclear states in South Asia to bring deterrence.
Chair, what's the last part of the question?
The role of non-nuclear states in South Asia to bring deterrence. That's the question.
Okay. I'm glad that question's been asked because, in any nuclear, in the nuclear club, non-nuclear states are not being considered as serious members. Let me start with highlighting our legacy on this. Sri Lanka, as an island state, had a strong legacy of producing non-nuclear discourse, starting from our own Sir John, and then he's one of the first to, very vociferous about this discourse, and then Shirley Amarasekara, Jayaratne, even up to the present foreign secretary, they are working on this field. Now, what can we do about deterrence? We are not in the matrix of deterrence, that is true. But we can make some kind of, during the times of non-alignment, certainly the non-nuclear states made some kind of influence on deterrence matrix by asking the culprits or the nuclear states to be more responsible. But unfortunately, the non-aligned states are no more taken as currency or valuable. I should say, because the Cold War is not there anymore. So non-alignedness is not relevant anymore. But even the context of deterrence have been moved from fear of retaliation to management of risk. In this new context of management of risk scenario, I think we are very much in the game. As long as we have the awareness and the knowledge, I think, yesterday we were talking about the Indo-Pacific strategy, the Sagarmala and all these kind of strategies. If you go into the depth of it, it is a nuclear rivalry that is being taking place. So if you want to take us on board as members or stakeholders or anything, we should also make a claim that let us aware about what's going on and where do we fit, basically, and then only we can make some kind of our security plan which is practical and more pragmatic, that can be, set into any context. Unfortunately, we don't study this, not even in the strategic circles or not even in the scientific circles. We don't study this game. We were talking about, we have so many headlines when the Chinese ship comes over here as surveillance ships and all, but we don't know why it is so important for India to be so vociferous about that ship. That relies with nuclearization. So therefore, I should say, as non-nuclear states, we should be aware. Awareness is the best thing. And then we should be in the nuclear regime, and we should act as a venue for mediation in this. So that actually we can discuss separately. But we are a very good place to mediate these conflicts in South Asia. So that's how we can fit into this context of deterrence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Is there a question from the audience? Okay, right. I have one more question to Kasun. What are the areas that you think SLAF can contribute for the national development? I hope the question is clear.
Yes, thank you. Okay. SLAF is already being leveraged. They are helping hands towards the national development. One thing is already discussed, United Nations peacekeeping. Apart from that, what I have understood through my studies, one thing has been oversighted, that is the air diplomacy. Where we could contribute overwhelmingly to the extent which cannot be done in the normal scenarios. Through the air diplomacy framework, we would be able to acquire knowledge, technology, as well as training opportunities. And the multinational cooperation approach, it is being already applied in the Europe as well, where they have small air forces like Sweden, Poland, they being applied the method of collective security. We have a vast area to be operated, our Colombo search and rescue region, and so we need adequate depth and adequate capacities and capabilities to operate in such domain. So if we do not have such capabilities, we would have the helping hand from the other regional friends to operate in a collaborative manner and adopting a common doctrine. But we have a constraint in this regard where the political entities would have manipulated this as invasion of foreign nations into their motherland. They are making their foothold in our backyard. This need to be properly managed by the government, where they need to arrive at a political consensus approach prior to have such a multinational cooperation. Otherwise, what we had seen so far, this thing is inevitable to avoid.
Thank you very much.
Sir, can I add a little bit to the same answer?
Yes.
Yes. So, being a tech-savvy organization, Air Force is having very sophisticated laboratories, testing equipments and workshops. At present, they are limited. The usage is limited to our own benefit only. We have not made them use for any other use. But if you take our regional countries, they have gone to a certain extent, like building up bilateral or mutual workmanship with state universities to enhance the universities' capacity on these technologies, as well as they have commercialized the services provided by these labs, and they are bidding for local and international technical requirements of airliners, other militaries, and they do generate a lot of money, because aviation is all about money. It's very costly affair. It's, even if you take a nut, making it overall or reuse, it takes some big amount of dollars. That's how the aviation field runs. So we can develop, it is already having, we have to develop a little bit and formulate some strategies and policies to make them use for the learning purpose of our graduates, as well as we can commercialize it for gaining some financial income also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, national security and its link to science, technology and innovation is vital, and there is no doubt. So with that, we have come to the end of this session. Today we had 5 presentations, and overall the presentations were good, and the Q&A session was stimulating, although we had no participation from the audience. Finally, I must thank the Vice Chancellor of KDU for organizing this wonderful event and inviting me to chair this session. I also must thank the presenters for their excellent effort, and I must wish them luck in their future endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That was a very interesting and fruitful discussion. I believe we will all leave this auditorium with immense knowledge gathered from the stimulating discussion. I would like to once again thank the Chairperson, Major General Swarna Bothota, for gracing the first technical session on defense and strategic studies with his presence among his busy schedule. I would also like to thank the authors of the first technical session for defense and strategic studies, Squadron Leader Wanasinghe, Squadron Leader Wijetunge, Dr. Sanat de Silva, Lieutenant Colonel Lasita Amarasekara, and Mrs. Sindhu Jayaratne for sharing their thoughts on the theme military affairs.
I would now like to call upon Major General Gamin Hapuarachchi, retired, WWB, RWP, RSP, USP, PSC, the former Commandant of KDA during 1998 to 1999, the founder of the Special Forces of Sri Lanka Army, the former Director General of Disaster Management Centre, Sri Lanka, and former Director General of the Vocational Training Authority, accompanied by Brigadier Vipula Chandrasil, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Defence and Administration of General Sir John Kothalavala, Defence University, to present the token of appreciation to Major General Swarna Bothota, the chair of the first technical session on military affairs. So please remain on stage. Now, I would like to invite the presenters of the first technical session to receive their tokens of appreciation. Squadron Leader Kasun Wijetunge. Dr. Sanat de Silva. And Lieutenant Colonel Lasita Amarasekara. Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we conclude the first technical session for Defense and Strategic Studies for the 15th International Research Conference.
We will commence the second and third technical sessions for Defense and Strategic Studies at FGS Auditorium and Classroom 4-1 at FGS. Therefore, I request that you attend physically or be online via the relevant link for the next session, which commences at 10:45 a.m.
Thank you.